Good glorious afternoon, Kitchissippi. It is Sunday, April the 17th. This is a video version of the 47th Kitchissippi Ward Newsletter. Council is coming off a fairly mammoth week over the past couple of weeks. Let's jump right in and take a look at some of the issues for this ward. One of the first things I wanted to address, I did finally get a blog up about the Spencer Street reconstruction. I think most people are aware by now that we have been pushing for some additional pedestrian and cycling safety measures on Spencer. We were successful at achieving some of those, some additional raised intersections and new bike lanes. I have a post up on the blog about that. Take a look at the newsletter for the link. Second item today is the tree felling permits. Residents may remember, I think over a year or so ago now, I asked the the forestry folks at the city what they could do to start reporting on the number of tree felling permits being issued in the city of Ottawa. It has been years since that was done, and we're all curious to take a look at the numbers. Well, I am pleased to say that at our next Environment Committee meeting, the first such report will be coming out. It is online now. There are links in the newsletter. Take a look. Obviously, Kitchissippi is head and shoulders above most of the wards in terms of the number of tree felling permits being issued. They will be discussed at the next Environment Committee, and I encourage folks who want to make a presentation to come on out. As a committee meeting, every member of the public has a right to address the committee for a 5-minute presentation. Take a look. If you need information on how to do that, please contact my office. Also in the newsletter this week, obviously the big headline item last week was the taxi bylaw. At our council meeting on Wednesday, we did pass the committee's recommendations with respect to legalizing companies that we're calling private transportation companies, that include companies such as Uber. I've put a full rationale for why I voted in favor of that recommendation on the blog. You can take a look by following the links that are in this week's newsletter. Also really important this week, there was a massive turnout to the open house on the Clery Avenue station. I think by now, of course, most people are aware the city is proposing to run light rail in stage 2 through the property, the strip mall at 747 Richmond Road, rather than the one previously proposed route through the Unitarian campus. There are fewer properties that need to be acquired, and it means that the station will be right on Richmond Road, which over the course of the 75 or 100 years that station will be there is a really critical consideration. I'm working directly with the residents of 75 Clery and of 727 Richmond to address some of their concerns around noise and vibration, but the open house last week was a chance to take a look at some of the broader considerations. There is going to be a fairly major consultation that will take about a year. It will kick off at an open house on June 4th, taking a look at some of the things that we don't know yet. Some really critical considerations in the area around the Clery station are: how are people going to get there by car, by bike, and by foot? How is the street going to be rebuilt according to complete street principles? What is going to be the planning for that neighborhood as the new station brings with it new intensification pressures? A lot of things to talk about all at once. The city is going to host a consultation that wraps all of those various conversations into one, incorporating multiple different city departments to ensure that all the different silos are talking to each other. I'm really looking forward to that June 4th meeting. I'll of course have more details about where and when in future communications. Also in the newsletter this week, another pop-up, April 23rd. For those who are new to the newsletter, for those who are new to the pop-ups, about once a week or so I am in the ward somewhere, at a store, at a coffee shop, at a community facility. When I can, I get to the beach to host 3 hours of pop-up office hours. This week I'm doing it at Happy Goat Coffee on Saturday, April the 23rd from 1 until 4. That's on Laurel. I hope you have a chance to pop by, chat about whatever is on your mind with respect to what's going on in the city or Kitchissippi. Tuesday evening, follow the links in the newsletter, we'll have the last session of our last round of consultations on the Rosemount Library. Residents will probably remember that we are hosting consultations on how that library might be expanded. We're asking questions about whether or not residents would be keen to see it moved in order to gain more space. If it doesn't move, if it's not expanded, how can it be renovated in a way that best meets the community's needs? We have one more workshop session on Tuesday evening to explore those questions. I want to thank the Public Library staff for the really rich relationship and conversation they've been having with the consultant that I've hired, working with the Rosemount group, going back and forth to explore some of the ideas that came out of the first session. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't had a chance to weigh in on the proposal for a drive-through at 70 Richmond Road, that's the corner of Island Park and Richmond on the southwest corner, please do follow the links that are in the newsletter in order to weigh in on whether or not you believe that a drive-through is an appropriate use for that already very congested intersection. Also, in the newsletter, a really good news story. We are set to cut the ribbon on the Van Lane Fieldhouse. It is right behind me here, one of the strangest files I've had on my desk since taking this office a little over a year ago. We are finally to the point where we're going to be able to cut the ribbon and open that. The Fieldhouse is going to be programmed by the Carlington Community Health Centre, the Dover Court Recreation Association, the Westboro Beach Community Association, Ottawa Community Housing, the Van Lang Tenants Association. On May 8th, we'll cut the ribbon. There may be a rare public appearance by our mayor at that event. We're going to have a bouncy castle at this point, talking about having a barbecue. It should be a fun community event. Sometime in the early afternoon. We'll get more details to you through the newsletter and blog as the details get firmed up. But that's something I can't wait to do in a couple of weeks. Another quick reminder for those who may not have heard, on Sunday, July the 10th, they are proposing to run the Hintonburg 5K down Wellington Street. That would imply a street closure of roughly an hour and a half or so, somewhere between likely 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. We're talking to the city about whether or not the race can run down that route. There is some questions about how the buses will be handled for that hour and a half, but it does have my full support, and I'm keen to see that happen. As those details get firmed up, I'll make sure that we are getting those details out to both residents and the business community. A couple of things coming up at the Committee of Adjustment hearing on April the 20th, just 3 in our ward at this hearing, down on Hamilton Avenue, just a few doors down from me. A severance in order to allow a new single 2-story home to go in. There are some variances that they need to do that haven't really raised many alarm bells. On, bear with me, on Hinton Avenue North, there is a severance being proposed for an existing semi-detached house, as well as a new front yard parking spot that is up for discussion at the C of A. And on Whitby, a resident is seeking some variances in order to be allowed to put a new rear deck and front entry onto their home. So if you're looking for details for any of those plans, they are online at the Committee of Adjustment. The links are in the newsletter. Also in the headlines this week, this year and last, Councillor Jody Middick challenged every councillor to take part in the Tamarack Ottawa race weekend. I'm going to do so again this year, running the 5K. It's time to lace up my sneakers again and get ready for that. This year I'm running for Team Mito Canada. Julie Drury, who is a McKellar Park resident, did lose her daughter recently to that. I am running on that team to help fundraise for that cause. Looking forward to getting every resident's support as that team has a very ambitious fundraising goal. Again, follow the links in the newsletter. A few things at City Hall that are on the agenda. On April the 25th, I will be addressing the Police Services Board in my capacity as a private individual to talk about community policing. There's been a lot of whispers, rumors, and media around changes to what I consider to be a very successful model of community policing. If there are changes in the offing, it will be very important to consult those very thoroughly with our community. Hintonburg, of course, was one of the beneficiaries of community policing when it was experiencing its challenges over a decade ago. We would be loath to see any major changes to that without talking to the community about it. Also, the wastewater and stormwater and water fee proposals that we've been talking about for several months now. It looks like those will be put off a bit and not come to Environment Committee right away. There has been a significant amount of concern in the rural areas. Staff want to make sure that they have their recommendations right before having that brought to committee and council for a vote. Also in the newsletter this week, I run through some of what went on at the council meeting. Besides that headline Uber discussion, there was also discussions about a ban on the sale of pets from commercial sources in our local pet stores. The recommendation that came out of committee a couple of weeks ago was to grandfather the stores that are currently selling pets from commercial sources for a period of 5 years before a total ban comes into effect. I was hoping to shorten that transition period. My motion was defeated. I was something like 17-7. I thank my colleagues who supported me for that one. Also at the council this week, we talked about a special levy for Alta Vista in order to build a refrigerated rink. I did dissent quietly on that one. There are some more reasons why in the newsletter this week. Also in the newsletter, the congestion discussion. Councillor Chernishenko had brought to council a motion to make a study of congestion part of our next transportation master planning exercise. That failed, unfortunately. The suburban and rural councillors felt that this was a discussion that would inevitably lead to the imposition at some point down the future of congestion charges and tolls, something their residents, they've heard, are adamantly against. So we won't be studying the causes of congestion in the lead up to our next transportation master plan. And that is what I had in the newsletter. Listen, if you're not signed up for the newsletter, be sure to do so. It's at kitchissippiward.ca. I rely on that to be one of my main communications channels with residents. We are adding to that subscriber list all the time. kitchissippiward.ca for all the details. It is a glorious Sunday. I hope everyone has a chance to get outside, have a coffee or a beverage on a patio, enjoy what looks to be a lovely week of weather ahead. And as always, if you have any questions, concerns, or issues, give my office a call at 613-580-2485 or email me at jeff.leeper, Leiper, @ottawa.ca. Have a great week, Kitchissippi.